What's up, YouTube? Wow, that was completely out of the blue. Let's try that again. What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Nash here. Welcome back to the channel. And today, yeah, I've got a lot to say about this draft, because a lot of these draft picks should have been the opposite. But before we get into today's video, guys, we are 37 subs away from 200. We are drawing closer and closer to the goal of 200 subscribers. And as I have said in previous videos, if this channel gets to 200 subs, I will open up this Korean Strike of Neos booster box in its entirety on the channel. As you guys could tell under the right light, it is taped shut, completely, like, taped, on the hopes to potentially pull this guy, Elemental Hero Air Neos. If the channel gets to 500 subs, I will open up this Korean LOB booster box that I got from my partners over at Collector Store. So be sure to check them out. Link and address will be in the description below. They actually just restocked these. So if you guys want to get your hands on them, now is the time to do so. I think I got mine for like 20 bucks, and I think it's still going on for that much. So might want to pick them up. However, if the channel gets to 1,000 subs, I will open up this first edition Toon Chaos box in its entirety on the channel, on the hopes to potentially pull a collector's rare. So if you guys want to see these boxes get opened, maybe you guys want some premium live event predictions and results. Maybe you guys want deck profiles. Maybe you guys want new card discussions, or perhaps even episodes of WWE's biggest issue, or maybe perhaps episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh's biggest issue. Maybe, just maybe, you will want as well. Give me a second, guys. Sorry, guys, there was like a hair. Probably tell there's a hair on my lens. Anyway, maybe you guys want episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh's biggest issue. Maybe you guys want some WWE topic videos. Well, if you guys want all of that and more, my channel is the place to be. So if you guys have not done so already, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, follow me on all of my social media. My ads will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. It will also be in the description as well. So this year's draft was kind of interesting. Excuse me, because of the fact that everybody across Raw, SmackDown, and NXT were all eligible to be drafted. And I believe, how many draft picks were there for NXT? Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. 6, 7. How was there really exactly 7? 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16. There were 16 NXT superstars that got drafted to the main roster. And trust me, guys, looking at these draft picks, I've got a lot of mixed emotions. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. There was a lot. I'm pretty conflicted with these draft picks. So let's get straight into it. Kicking these off with Monday Night Raw for night one, the first overall draft pick was Cody Rhodes. Now, I can totally understand Cody Rhodes being drafted to Raw. Obviously, now he's at a point where he's now become one of the biggest stars on Raw, like hands down. And for him to go toe-to-toe with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania in the main event, that right there proves that I think Raw definitely made the right choice drafting Cody Rhodes. They ended up also choosing Becky Lynch as well, which I'm not surprised about. I mean, Becky Lynch is the man. You can't blame Raw for wanting to pick Becky Lynch. But this one was a bit of a curveball, because they drafted also all three members of Imperium: Ludwig Kaiser, Giovanni Vinci, and the Intercontinental Champion Gunther, in which that was a massive curveball. And I'm gonna be honest, I personally feel like that Imperium should have stayed on SmackDown, for the simple reason that Gunther won his title on SmackDown, so it would only be right if his title run continued and his record would be set on SmackDown. But again, all draftees, but of course, again, everybody was eligible to be drafted. So this one I could understand, but I feel like he would have been better off on SmackDown because of the fact that there were still a lot of people that Gunther hadn't faced, including guys like Solo Sikoa. Roman Reigns would have been a good match for Gunther. Even also, perhaps even Santos Escobar, or maybe even as well Karrion Kross could have been a good draft pick. Not draft pick, a good challenger for the ring general, but it is what it is. Next up, they also drafted Matt Riddle, which I'm not surprised about. Matt Riddle is like huge. He's like at the top right now of box office draw. Like he's getting close to that point. He's a former 3-time tag team champion, 2 Raw, 1 NXT. He's a former United States champion. He's done quite a bit in WWE, and let's also not forget, he's also a Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic winner alongside Butch when they were known as the Broserweights, which that was probably the most hilarious name ever, but it fucking worked. It literally worked, people. And speaking of curveballs, they also drafted Drew McIntyre, which I don't know. This one kind of stings a little bit, because don't get me wrong, he did amazing on Raw. Becoming WWE champion, becoming a tag team champion, winning the Royal Rumble. I feel like if he stayed on SmackDown a little bit longer, I feel like that they could have used him quite well. But in my opinion, putting Drew back on Raw, I think was probably the best thing, because there's no way in hell that he'll ever defeat Roman. With all due respect to Drew McIntyre, there's no way in hell that Drew will be able to pin Roman Reigns. It's impossible. Why? Because of the bloodline. The bloodline will just get involved and help Roman retain, because Roman don't got the balls big enough to defend the title himself. I'm being honest. Roman Reigns, in my opinion, Roman Reigns does not have the balls big enough to retain the title on his own. If you don't believe me, you can go ask Cody Rhodes. You can go ask Brock Lesnar. You can even also ask Matt Riddle. Ask Logan Paul. They'll all tell you the same thing. Roman Reigns can't do it on his own. You know, Goldberg, John Cena may have been one thing. Those are legends. Those are bona fide legends. But everyone else, he can't do it on his own. So Drew going back to Raw, probably the best pick for Raw, because there wasn't much for Drew to do on SmackDown anyway. So I guess it's justified. Speaking of things being justified, Raw also drafted The Miz, which honestly was a good pick. Miz has done far more on Raw than he did on SmackDown, so it makes sense for them to draft The Miz. This one, talk about a massive curveball. Raw also drafted, for the first time ever, Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, the thing is, don't get me wrong, he's a former SmackDown Tag Team Champion, he's a former Intercontinental Champion, a former United States Champion. All those things he won while on SmackDown, and he had been a staple to SmackDown for like 6 years, having won all those titles, winning the Royal Rumble as well, and even also people also forget that he's a former 2-time NXT champion. So it'll be interesting to see how they'll use Shinsuke on Raw as opposed to how he was used on SmackDown. Speaking of NXT, the first NXT pick was the now former NXT Women's Champion Indi Hartwell. She actually gave up the title last night on NXT for 2 reasons. One, because again she was drafted to Raw and she didn't want to hog the title for herself. And the second reason, she got injured. If you guys remember, what was it, last week at Spring Breakin'? She twisted her ankle, and that was one of the big reasons why she gave up the title, was because she was injured. So now we're gonna have a tournament to crown a new NXT Women's Champion, which I'm assuming it might culminate at Battleground. I'm presuming. I don't know if it will or not. We'll know more later on as time progresses, but still, Indi Hartwell on Raw, best pick. An awesome draft pick. I'm gonna be honest, I'm actually kind of surprised because Indi Hartwell did amazing on NXT. Came to NXT from nothing, made her way up to the top, found the way, no pun intended. Became a tag team champion, and then became NXT Women's Champion last month at Stand and Deliver. She definitely earned it. That was it for night 1. Now we got round 5, the fifth round of the supplemental draft. So to recap, round 1, Raw chose Cody Rhodes and Becky Lynch. Round 2, they chose Imperium and Matt Riddle. Round 3, they chose Drew McIntyre and The Miz. And the final round, TV-wise anyway, they drafted Shinsuke Nakamura and Indi Hartwell. The 5th round was basically the supplemental draft. So they drafted the Viking Raiders with Valhalla. Maximum Male Models, Candice LeRae, Dexter Lumis, NXT call-ups, JD McDonough and Zoe Stark, Natalya, NXT call-up Apollo Crews coming back to the main roster, Chelsea Green, and Sonya Deville. Viking Raiders and Valhalla, I think it's justified because they wanted to become tag team champions on SmackDown. They couldn't do it. They came close, couldn't do it. They were much better off on Raw than they were on SmackDown, so I can understand that. Maximum Male Models, I'm gonna be honest here. Masse and Mansoor, I think they still have a lot to prove. So them staying on Raw, I can sort of understand it. Candice LeRae and Dexter Lumis, you can't be that surprised. they've only been back in WWE for like not even a year, and they're still proving themselves. So, awesome idea to have them on Raw. JD McDonough, I'm gonna be honest, I feel like he should have been on SmackDown for one reason and one reason only. It's because of the fact that, don't get me wrong, incredible, like, don't get me wrong, think of the dream matches, you know, for Raw, against Cody Rhodes, against Gunther, even though we had that, while, you know, from their time on NXT UK, you know, guys, you know, going up against Matt Riddle and Drew McIntyre and The Miz and whatnot. Don't get me wrong; those are good dream matches. But think of the big money matches against a guy like Roman Reigns. That right there would have been money. That would have been a big money match. But you know what? I'm gonna be honest. JD McDonough on Raw, it'll be interesting. It will be very, very interesting to say the very least. Next up, Zoe Stark. I don't think so. I think, in my honest opinion, I believe it should have been Roxanne Perez instead of Zoe Stark. Reason being, Zoe Stark, don't get me wrong, she's been a part of NXT for what, 2-3 years now. But the problem is that she didn't win the NXT Women's title. Roxanne did, and if that doesn't get you to the main roster, I don't know what will. So Zoe Stark, not the worst, but it's not the best either in my opinion. Then also again Natalya. She did pretty well. She's won more titles on SmackDown than she did on Raw. So it'll be interesting to see how she'll fare against against the female talent of Raw. We'll see what happens. Apollo Crews. Ooh, this will be an interesting one because now Apollo Crews, he's coming back to the main roster as a babyface. No longer does he have to deal with what's his name? With Dabba-Kato, or I guess Commander Aziz, if you will. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how he'll fare against a guy like Cody Rhodes or against like Gunther. This will be interesting. It'll be interesting. Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville, two Karens who just don't give a good fuck. No comment. I got nothing to say. No comment on that one. But night 2 of the draft for Raw, they drafted for the first round Rhea Ripley and Seth freaking Rollins. I'm not surprised. I mean, those are two of your biggest draws for Raw, so it would only be right if they stayed on Raw. It would only be right. The second round, they drafted Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, the tag team champions, as well as the rest of the Judgment Day, Damian Priest, Finn Balor, and Dominic Mysterio. It's an interesting pick, but I feel like Rhea Ripley should have been drafted to SmackDown for the sole reason that she's the SmackDown Women's Champion. Wouldn't you want your brand's champion to go to your own brand? It doesn't make sense, but it would only mean that she would have to excel even further as a solo act rather than with the Judgment Day, which honestly would have been pretty cool. But I will admit, Rhea Ripley on Raw, first draft pick, not surprised. Round 3, they drafted the women's tag team champions Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Just like with the undisputed tag team champions, it doesn't matter because both tag team champions, Owens and Zayn and Liv and Raquel, they're allowed to go to both Raw and SmackDown. So what's the point? it's like, what's the point of drafting them to one brand when they're allowed to go to both either way? So it really doesn't matter. They also drafted as well the New Day, which that's interesting. It's kind of interesting because they did more. They've won more titles as part of the SmackDown roster rather than as part of the Raw roster. But with Kofi injured, and with Gunther now on Raw, Woods can still go after the Intercontinental title if he wanted to. Which honestly, in my opinion, is probably a good idea for Woods, because if Woods becomes champion, it means that all three members of New Day are former Intercontinental champions, which would be pretty cool. Round 4, they drafted Trish Stratus, as well as Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey. I'm gonna be honest, Trish on Raw, it's interesting that she's doing this full time again because of the fact that she's a Hall of Famer, and I kind of figure she would have done a part-time thing, kind of like how how Edge does it, but still, Trish on Raw, not surprising. She did more on Raw than she did on SmackDown, when she was competing full-time originally, you know, from back in the day, so it makes sense. Shayna and Ronda, it's interesting. But the tag team, the women's tag team champions, better be prepared, because that'll be a hell of a fight. They also that was round 4. Round 5, they drafted Braun Strowman and Ricochet as a team. That is interesting, because we also found out as well that the Raw and SmackDown ring announcers, Mike Rome and Samantha Irvin, have now switched brands. Meaning now Mike Rome will be working SmackDown, and Samantha Irvin will be working Monday Night Raw. Reason being, the answer is simple. Ricochet and Samantha Irvin, if you guys didn't know, or I'm pretty sure Ricochet talked about it in a recent interview, but they're engaged. So it would only make sense to keep couples together. It would make sense. Raw even also drafted as well Bronson Reed, which I'm not surprised about. Bronson Reed, he's only been on Raw, been in WWE for a few months. He still has a lot to prove. Round 6, Raw drafted the Alpha Academy and the former NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, Kaden Carter and Katana Chance. Honestly, Alpha Academy, it's no surprise. They're former Raw Tag Team Champions. Gable's is a multi-time tag team champion. Otis is a former Money in the Bank winner. You can't be that. You can't be too surprised on that. Chance and Carter, very well deserved. They've earned it. They've been a part of the PC for like 4-5 years now, grinding, busting their asses. Well deserved to them. Round 7, which is basically the supplemental draft, they drafted Dana Brooke, Nikki Cross, Johnny Gargano, Los Lotharios, Angel Garza, and Humberto Carrillo, Akira Tozawa, Piper Niven, Xia Li, Tegan Knox, Emma, Riddick Moss, now no longer Madcap Moss, just Riddick Moss, NXT call-ups, Odyssey Jones, and Indus and of course, as I mentioned, Samantha Irvin. A lot of these I'm not too surprised on. Brooke, Cross, Gargano, Tozawa, Niven. I'm not surprised about, honestly, in my opinion. Garza and Carrillo. they did somewhat okay on Raw than they did on SmackDown, so it'll be interesting. Xia Li to Raw, this will be interesting for her because this now means that she has an opportunity to excel even further as a WWE superstar. So I'm curious to see how they'll treat her on Raw as opposed to how they treated her on SmackDown. Tegan Nox, let's be honest, I think it's justified that she now is a part of Raw, because just like with Xia Li, Tegan Nox hadn't been used all that much, so it'll be interesting. Riddick Moss and Emma together, honestly, I think Emma needs to be in the ring a lot more than she has been, because she's only had like what, 2, 3, maybe 4 matches overall since coming back to WWE late last year. So it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting. Odyssey Jones, worst pick ever. I'm being honest. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of Odyssey Jones and how much he's grown since joining WWE, since going to NXT. But this might be the worst draft pick ever because of the fact that if you look at his win and loss record, yes, there are more wins than losses. The biggest problem that I have is the fact that he has never, not once, challenged for a title in NXT. And the problem is that he's gonna end up lost in the shuffle, and he might end up getting released from WWE, which is something that I don't want to see. So, Odyssey Jones, not a good pick. I would consider that to be the worst pick ever. Now, in the share, it's kind of funny. I find it funny because last year, Veer actually debuted on Raw the night after WrestleMania, and he was only a part of the roster for only a few months, but he ended up going back to NXT. So to see him back on Raw is kind of funny, but with Jinder Mahal, think about that, guys. Jinder Mahal is a former WWE champion, and he's a former United States champion. Think about that, guys. This will be interesting. This will be very interesting. But that's pretty much it for the Raw draft picks. As far as the free agents from night 1, Omos, Von Wagner from NXT, Dolph Ziggler, and of course Mustafa Ali have all been treated as free agents, meaning now they are now allowed to go to both Raw and SmackDown if they want to. Hell, they can even also go to NXT as well. Now, as far as SmackDown goes, this might be the strangest set of draft picks ever. But round 1, they chose Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, and Paul Heyman, the Bloodline. No surprise there. Obviously, Roman Reigns has been a staple to SmackDown since 2019. So for 4 years, he's been a staple of SmackDown for 4 years, which means that both the WWE title and the Universal title will now be exclusive to SmackDown, and the World Heavyweight title will be exclusive to Monday Night Raw, which I'm curious as to what the tournament will look like as we draw closer and closer and closer to Night of Champions, which I'm assuming Night of Champions is going to be which I'm assuming Night of Champions might be the night where all titles get defended. And if that's the case, it means that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are gonna have to defend the tag titles in Saudi Arabia, and apparently they're not allowed to go there for political reasons, I guess. I don't know what the reasons are. I couldn't tell you. That's just my assumption. It might be might be political reasons, might be some religious reasons. Couldn't speak. Who knows? Who knows? But Reigns, Solo, and Heyman to SmackDown. No surprise there. They also drafted Bianca Belair, the Raw Women's Champion, which means that we're not going to be seeing new champions heading into this coming Monday on Raw, because after Backlash this Saturday, the draft picks will be in full force, and I can definitely see Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair switching titles this coming Monday on Raw. I'm being honest. I'm calling it now. We might see it. Round 2, SmackDown drafted the Street Profits and Edge. 2 amazing draft picks. Obviously, both Montez Ford and Bianca Belair are married to one another, so it would only be right for them to be drafted together. Edge being drafted back to SmackDown, best pick ever. He did quite a bit on Raw the last couple years, with being in matches against guys like The Miz and Finn Balor and Damian Priest and even also Austin Theory, the United States Champion, challenging for said title. But him on SmackDown, awesome pick, incredible pick. Round 3, they drafted they drafted Bobby Lashley, and get this, the OC, meaning last week on SmackDown we saw the return of AJ Styles. I never thought we would ever see AJ back in WWE from his injury. It's awesome. It's phenomenal. Bad joke, I know, but you could say it wasn't just phenomenal, it was too sweet. Lashley on SmackDown, it makes sense. I mean, Bobby Lashley did win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal on SmackDown right before WrestleMania, so it would only make sense. Plus, he won his first title in WWE on SmackDown as well. AJ's now the OC to SmackDown. This will be interesting because with Roman Reigns as champion, we could run it back to 2016. Who knows? Or even also with Edge on SmackDown, we could see that matchup again. No BS, no factions, just two baby faces going at it for bragging rights. I say fuck it, why not? Let's go. Round 4, they drafted Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, which that's an awesome pick. For Alba Fire, in my opinion, Alba Fire is the longest reigning NXT UK Women's Champion of all time, over 460 days as champion, before dropping the title to Meiko Satomura. But in my opinion, I think this is justified for someone like Alba Fire, because Alba has been a staple to NXT for several years, and I think her and Dawn together on SmackDown, this will be very interesting, because the tag team titles will now be on SmackDown, but it also means that they'll still be able to compete on NXT, at least until they drop the titles, which I don't think they'll be dropping the titles anytime soon, but who knows. That was pretty much it for night 1. In the 5th round, basically the supplemental draft, they also drafted Hit Row and Lacey Evans, so that's kind of an interesting one. But it's it is what it is. But we'll see what happens over time. Night 2, the first round of Night 2, they drafted Austin Theory and Charlotte Flair. I'm not surprised that they would draft Austin Theory, but what's interesting is that now, with Bobby Lashley on SmackDown, even if Austin Theory drops the title to Bobby Lashley, he'll be a part, the United States title will still be exclusive to SmackDown, which will be interesting to say the very least. Charlotte Flair, on the other hand, awesome draft pick. I'm not surprised on that one, in my opinion. Round 2. Now, this is where I am very conflicted, okay? Round 2, they drafted the Usos and the LWO. LWO to SmackDown, I'm cool with that. I love it. It's awesome. It's awesome. It'll be a good way for Ray to teach Santos, Zelina, Del Toro, and Wilde, more about the business than any other one person could ever teach them. But the Usos to SmackDown, worst pick ever. I'm being honest, it's the worst draft pick you will ever see because of 3 reasons. Number one, they lost at WrestleMania, which pissed off Roman Reigns because we all knew Roman Reigns expected a victory. He called his shot and said, hey, you know what? Guess what, Usos? You guys are going to win at WrestleMania. And he missed. Usos lost. The second reason is that the last few weeks, the Usos, it's true. It's true that they have won a few matches here and there, but a lot of their matches they lost. And they also lost the rematch against Owens and Zayn from last week on SmackDown. The third reason, Roman Reigns now hates the Usos. He's now disappointed in the Usos to a point where he was expecting the Usos to be drafted to Raw. But you know what? This will be interesting because as I said, what was it this past week? What was it on Tuesdays? What was it in my Backlash prediction video? I think I said that there were rumors going around that Roman Reigns could be coming back to SmackDown at some point. It might be after Backlash. I'm assuming. I don't really know, but let's be real here. We know Roman Reigns is gonna tell the Usos, "Hey, you're out. You're out. You're done. You're done. You're out of the bloodline. Piss off." So I'm being honest. Usos to SmackDown, worst pick ever. I feel like in my opinion, I feel like it should have been JD McDonough on SmackDown instead of the Usos. But we'll see what happens. Round 3, SmackDown drafted Asuka and the Brawling Brutes. Asuka's been on a huge roll since rebranding herself with new face paint and whatnot. So it'll be interesting. SmackDown Women's Division, get ready because Asuka is coming. Brawling Brutes to SmackDown, no surprise there. There's still a lot for them to do on SmackDown, so it'll be interesting. Round 4, they drafted Karrion Kross and Scarlett, as well as LA Knight. What I mean, what can I say? Both are former champions in NXT. Kross is a former 2-time NXT champion. LA Knight is a former $1 million champion, if you can believe that. So it would only make sense for those 3 to be on SmackDown. Round 5, they drafted, get this, Shotzi and get this, the former NXT and NXT UK Tag Team Champions, Pretty Deadly. Think about that, guys. Kid Wilson, Elton Prince on SmackDown. Honestly, honestly, I'm not mad about that. I am not mad about that at all. I think them on SmackDown, it'll be interesting to say the very least. They did, however, split Shotzi and Natalya, which I feel like I feel like it's okay. I mean, Shotzi can still excel as a singles competitor as she did when she was in NXT, but we'll see what happens. Round 6, the final round, TV-wise, they drafted Rick Boogs and Cameron Grimes. It's about fucking time that we hear of Cameron Grimes. We had not heard from the dude in months. And I think it was because of the fact that he got injured. I think he got injured. So, him on SmackDown, it's going to be awesome. And with Wade Barrett on commentary, come on. You know damn well he's going to be singing the praises of Cameron Grimes. It is going to be wild. Or maybe he might talk down on him or something. Who knows? Boogs on back on SmackDown. It'll be interesting because he doesn't have Shinsuke Nakamura. He does have Elias though, but did he get drafted? Guess you guys will have to find out. Grimes on SmackDown, very well deserved. Former NXT North American champion, former $1 Million champion. He's had countless opportunities at the NXT title, and he's pushed everybody on NXT to their breaking point. He was even pushed to his breaking point at one time as well in NXT. So I'm not surprised on that. Round 7, the final round, they drafted Tamina and get this, Grayson Waller, which, I mean, it's fine. I don't know. Who the fuck am I kidding? That was the worst draft pick ever. I mean, he still needs to stay in, and I think he should have stayed in NXT for a little bit longer. But it is what it is. The free agents, they from night 2, we got Brock Lesnar, Baron Corbin, Shelton Benjamin, and Cedric Alexander, Zion Quinn, and of course Elias. So we have exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 free agents. Omos, Von Wagner. Hold on. From the main roster, we got Omos, Dolph Ziggler, Mustafa Ali, Brock Lesnar, Baron Corbin, Elias, and of course Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. The only 2 NXT free agents are Von Wagner and Zion Quinn. So this will be interesting to see how well they fare on the main roster. So it'll be interesting. So my thoughts on this draft, I mean, it is what it is. Usos to SmackDown, Grayson Waller to SmackDown, worst picks ever. Edge to SmackDown, awesome draft pick. So you can see that there's a lot of confliction with this draft list. But this brings me to the question of the day, which is this: what are you guys' thoughts on this on the 2023 draft, and who do you think exactly should have been drafted to Raw? Who should have been drafted to SmackDown? And who exactly from NXT should have been called up? Let me know down in the comments below. And that will do it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button. If you guys are new to the channel and you guys want more videos like this in the future, drafts, reviews in the future, which will probably happen only once a year because the draft usually happens once a year. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell and follow me on all of my social media. My ads will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. It will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.